The empty house. The night was cold the day Injeoma's mother left this world. The once lively home, full of laughter and the sweet smell of her mother's cooking, suddenly became silent like a grave. Injeoma was only 10, but she felt the weight of the silence pressing on her chest. She cried until her small body shook, yet no matter how much she cried, her mother did not wake. The house, which once had light, now felt like a shadow had moved in. Her father tried to hide his pain, but Injeoma could see it in his eyes. He sat by the fire every evening, staring as if the flames could bring back what he had lost. Injeoma wanted to reach out, to hold him, but she was still just a child. She washed dishes with shaky hands, fetched water with tired legs, and forced smiles when her heart was bleeding. She thought maybe if she worked hard enough, the sorrow would leave their house. But sorrow did not leave. It grew. Neighbors whispered when they saw Injeoma, "Poor child, she is all alone now." Other children played and laughed in the evenings, but she could only sit by the mango tree, hugging her knees, waiting for a voice that never called her name. Sometimes, she dreamed of her mother walking in with open arms, only to wake up to the bitter truth: she was gone. 6 long years passed, and Injeoma grew into a tall, graceful girl with sad eyes that seemed older than her age. People admired her beauty, but behind that beauty lived a heart full of scars. Still, she held on to hope, whispering to herself that maybe one day things would be better. But fate was not done with high mourning. Her father cleared his throat and said words that made Injeoma's stomach twist. "My daughter," he said, "I cannot stay alone anymore. I am taking a new wife." He smiled as if this news brought relief. But for Injeoma, it was the beginning of a storm she could not see yet, but one that was waiting to break her. The news of her father's new wife spread through the village like fire on dry grass. Some people smiled, saying it was good for a man to have a woman in his home again. But others shook their heads, whispering, "May God protect that girl, Injeoma." She didn't understand why they spoke that way, but in her heart, she felt uneasy. Something told her that her life was about to change, and not for the better. The wedding day came too quickly. Injeoma wore a faded dress and stood in the corner as her father welcomed his new bride. The woman's name was Mama Ola, and from the first moment their eyes met, Injeoma's stomach sank. Mama Ola's smile was thin, forced, and her eyes carried a sharpness that made the young girl shiver. When Mama Ola held her hand, her grip was tight, not warm. Injeoma knew then that she was not going to be treated as a daughter. At first, things seemed quiet. Mama Ola cooked for the house, laughed with her new husband, and even tried to show kindness. But when her father was not around, her true face appeared. She would snap at Injeoma for walking too slowly, hiss when water spilled, and call her lazy even when her back ached from work. Injeoma swallowed her tears, too afraid to complain to her father. Each night, as Injeoma lay on her thin mat, she whispered to the shadows, "Mama, if only you were here. Maybe I would not suffer like this." The air in the room felt heavy, and sometimes she thought she heard her mother's voice, soft but distant, telling her to be strong. But Mama Ola was just beginning. She was not satisfied with small insults or little chores. She wanted to break Injeoma, to crush her spirit. And deep inside, she carried a secret so dark that if Injeoma knew, she would have run far, far away before it was too late. The first few weeks after the wedding, Injeoma's father was always by Mama Ola's side. He laughed again, sang sometimes, and looked happier than he had in years. But Injeoma noticed something: each time her father left the compound for work, Mama Ola's face would change. Her smile would fade like smoke, and her eyes would turn hard like stone. That was when Injeoma began to see her true colors. It started with chores. Mama Ola would hand Injeoma baskets bigger than her body and command, "Fetch water till it spills over." Injeoma would stagger under the weight, her young arms trembling, but Mama Ola only sneered. The girl washed clothes until her fingers peeled, scrubbed the compound until her knees bled, yet it was never enough. If a leaf fell after sweeping, Mama Ola slapped her cheek. When her father came home, Mama Ola wore her sweetest face. She cooked his favorite soup, laughed loudly, and pretended Injeoma was treated like a princess. "Your daughter is like my own," she would say, and the man, blinded by love, believed her. Injeoma wanted to speak the truth, but each time she tried, Mama Ola's sharp glance silenced her. She feared if she spoke, her father would not believe her, or worse, Mama Ola would punish her more. At night, Injeoma lay on her mat with sore muscles and tears soaking her pillow. The stars above seemed to watch her silently. She whispered prayers to her late mother, begging for strength, begging for escape. "Mama, if you can see me, help me," she cried, her voice breaking. But Mama Ola was not just wicked, she was dangerous. Injeoma did not know yet that behind those cruel eyes lived something darker than jealousy, a secret that could steal not just her joy, but her very life. The storm was no longer coming. It had already entered her house. Days turned into weeks, and the weight on Injeoma's young shoulders grew heavier. From sunrise to sunset, she carried pots, fetched water, pounded yam, and washed clothes until her fingers swelled. Still, Mama Ola found fault. "Lazy girl," she shouted if a grain of rice spilled. "Useless child," she spat if Injeoma paused to catch her breath. The words stung more than the blows, but Injeoma swallowed her pain. Her father remained blind to it all. When he came home in the evenings, Mama Ola became sweetness itself, serving him food and pretending she cared for Injeoma like her own daughter. "Papa, I am tired," Injeoma wanted to say many times, but when she opened her mouth, Mama Ola's sharp eye silenced her. Fear tied her tongue. She knew that if she spoke, the punishment would be worse. One night, after her father had fallen asleep, Mama Ola sat outside under the moon. She muttered to herself, grinding strange herbs in a small pot. Her face glowed with a cruel smile. "This girl," she whispered, "she is too pretty, too gentle. She reminds him of his first wife. I will not let her shine. I will not let her steal his heart." Her words carried venom, and her hands moved with the skill of someone who knew dark things. Inside, Injeoma stirred on her mat. She felt a chill sweep over her as if invisible hands brushed against her skin. She hugged herself, whispering, "Mama, something is wrong. Protect me." The night seemed to listen, but gave no answer. That was the night Mama Ola's plan began. Not just to punish Injeoma, not just to make her suffer, but to change her fate forever. For in Mama Ola's heart, a wicked thought had taken root: Injeoma would no longer live as a girl. She would be turned into something less, something helpless. And soon, the world would see her as nothing but a goat. The next morning, Mama Ola's eyes glowed with a wicked fire. She gave Injeoma chores heavier than ever before. "Grind this yam until it turns to dust," she barked. "Fetch water until your legs break." Injeoma obeyed, though her body shook from exhaustion. Sweat ran down her face, her hands trembled, and yet Mama Ola stood watching, arms folded, smiling like someone who enjoyed another's pain. But something strange began to happen that day. As Injeoma bent over the grinding stone, her arms felt weaker than usual, her fingers stiff as though they were not hers. She stumbled, and the pestle fell from her hand. "Lazy!" Mama Ola shouted, striking her shoulder. But as Injeoma cried, her voice cracked in a strange way, half human, half like a bleating goat. She froze, frightened, but Mama Ola only smirked. That night, Injeoma lay restless on her mat. Her legs cramped, and her back ached in an unfamiliar way. She reached to scratch her skin, and for a moment, she thought she felt a thin layer of coarse hair. "What is happening to me?" she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. But the only answer was the sound of Mama Ola humming outside, grinding herbs and chanting words that made the night feel heavy. The following day, Injeoma tried to hide her strange coughs and bleats, but Mama Ola noticed. She laughed softly, a cruel laugh that sent fear into the girl's heart. "Soon, you will no longer cry as a girl," she muttered under her breath. "You will cry as the animal you are meant to be." Injeoma's heart pounded. Something was wrong inside her, something she could not explain. She wanted to run to her father, to beg him to see her pain, but Mama Ola was always watching, waiting, and smiling that wicked smile. And deep down, Injeoma knew, her stepmother's plan was already working. The moon was full the night Mama Ola chose to finish what she had started. The air was thick, and the cricket song suddenly went quiet, as if the whole village held its breath. Injeoma lay on her mat, shivering, her body aching in ways she could not explain. Her throat felt strange, and each time she tried to speak, a bleat escaped instead of words. Fear gripped her heart. Mama Ola moved quietly to the backyard, carrying a small black pot filled with bitter herbs, ashes, and the feather of a blackbird. She placed it on the ground and began to chant in a language Injeoma did not understand. Her voice rose and fell, her eyes glowed, and the fire before her burned green instead of red. The wind picked up, rattling the windows of the house. Suddenly, Injeoma felt her skin prickle. Her arms grew heavy, her legs bent in a way that made her cry out. But the cry was not her own. It was the sound of a goat. She touched her face, and her fingers brushed against something rough. She tried to scream for her father, but no human words came out, only frightened bleats. Mama Ola laughed, her voice echoing like thunder. "Yes. Now you will know what it means to suffer. No one will see you as a girl again. You will eat grass, not food. You will live like the animal you are." She clapped her hands as the transformation completed. When morning came, the villagers passing by saw a beautiful black and white goat tied in the compound. They wondered where it had come from, but Mama Ola only smiled and said, "It is mine." Injeoma, now trapped in the body of a goat, looked at them with tears in her eyes. But no one understood. Her voice was gone, her form stolen. She was no longer the daughter of the house, she was only a goat. The sun rose gently over the village, but for Injeoma, it brought no warmth. She was tied to a tree in the compound, her slender neck fastened with a rough rope. Her once soft hands were gone, replaced by hooves. Her voice, once full of laughter and sorrow, had been stolen. Now, only the sound of a goat's bleat came from her throat. Inside, she was still Injeoma. But to the world, she was just an animal. Her father walked past that morning, surprised. "Where did this goat come from?" he asked. Mama Ola smiled sweetly and replied, "Oh, my husband, I bought it at the market. I thought it would be good for meat or milk." He nodded, believing her, and walked away. Injeoma bleated desperately, her eyes filled with tears, begging him to look closer, to see her soul shining through. But he only patted the goat's back and left. Her heart broke into 1,000 pieces. Mama Ola's cruelty grew worse. She would throw dirty water at Injeoma, kick her if she moved too slowly, and laugh at her misery. Sometimes she would wisp. Sometimes she would whisper close to her ear, "How does it feel now? You thought you were special, but look at you, nothing but meat on 4 legs." The words cut deeper than any knife. At night, when the village grew quiet, Injeoma would look at the stars and cry. Her bleats carried sadness that no one could understand. She prayed her mother's spirit would hear her and send help. Each tear that rolled down her goat's face felt heavier than all the chores she had ever done. But fate is strange. Even in her suffering, there was still a spark of hope. Somewhere in the village, someone was about to notice something unusual about this goat. Someone who would look into her eyes and see not an animal, but a human soul trapped inside. And when that happened, Mama Ola's secret would no longer be safe. The days dragged on, and Injeoma's suffering grew heavier. She ate grass under the hot sun, her tears mixing with the morning dew. Yet inside, her spirit refused to die. She prayed in silence, begging God to send someone who would see beyond her new form. Her father remained blind, trusting Mama Ola's lies. But fate was stirring, and soon her cries would reach the right ears. One afternoon, a small boy from the neighborhood wandered into the compound, eyes that noticed what others ignored. He approached the goat tied by the tree and bent low to look into its eyes. Injeoma gazed back, her heart pounding. For the first time, someone didn't just see a goat, he saw the sadness of a girl. Mama Ola, the boy called, this goat, it looks like it wants to talk. Mama Ola laughed harshly. Child, goats don't talk. Go back to play. But Chike didn't move. He touched Injeoma's face gently, and the goat leaned into his hand, tears rolling down her cheeks. The boy gasped. This is not an ordinary goat. There's something inside. From that day, Chike returned secretly. He fed Injeoma sweet cassava peels and whispered, "Don't worry, I will find out your secret." Injeoma bleated softly, her heart swelling with hope. For the first time since her transformation, she felt seen. But Mama Ola was not blind. She noticed the boy's visits and the way the goat reacted to him. Her smile twisted with fear and anger. She realized her secret might be slipping away. And so, she made up her mind, before anyone else discovered the truth, she would destroy the goat once and for all. Mama Ola's heart beat fast as she sharpened a long kitchen knife. The scraping sound of metal against stone filled the compound, sending chills down Injeoma's spine. Tied under the mango tree, she bleated in fear, pulling at the rope with all her strength. But Mama Ola only laughed. Today, your story ends. No one will ever know who you really are. You will be nothing but meat for my table. That afternoon, she sent Injeoma's father to the market, pretending she needed spices for soup. The moment he left, she returned to the goat with the knife in her hand. Her eyes glowed with triumph as she raised it high. Injeoma's cries grew louder, desperate, filled with human sorrow. Birds in the trees scattered, sensing the evil in the air. Just then, Chike appeared at the gate. He had come again with cassava peels, but what he saw made his blood run cold. Mama Ola, he shouted, why are you killing this goat? She snapped at him, go home, foolish boy. This is my goat. But Chike stood firm. No, this is not just a goat. I see it in her eyes. She is crying like a person. You are hiding something. Mama Ola's hand trembled for the first time. The knife wavered in the air as the boy's words pierced the silence. Injeoma bleated again, tears pouring down her face, her voice rising like a plea to heaven itself. The boy's cry carried into the street, and soon neighbors began to gather at the gate, curious about the noise. For the first time since her transformation, Injeoma felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, the truth was about to come out. But Mama Ola's face hardened again. If the secret was slipping, she would fight with all her wicked strength to bury it forever. Just then, Injeoma's father returned earlier than expected. He stopped dead in his tracks when he saw Mama Ola, knife raised high above the goat. What is this? He shouted, his voice thundering across the compound. Mama Ola froze, her face pale for a moment before she forced a smile. Oh, my husband, I only wanted to prepare meat for you, she lied quickly. But the crowd of neighbors had gathered by now, and Chike's voice rang clear. Papa. That goat is not a goat, it is Injeoma. Mama Ola bewitched her. Look into her eyes, and you will see. The villagers murmured in shock. Some laughed nervously, but others drew closer, staring at the goat tied under the mango tree. Injeoma's father turned to look. When his eyes met the goat's, he staggered back as if struck. He saw them, those same sorrowful eyes he had seen every day in his daughter. The eyes that reminded him of her late mother. He dropped the basket of yams, his hands trembling. Injeoma, he whispered, his voice breaking. The goat bleated, tears streaming down its face. The crowd gasped. Anger rose in the father's chest like fire. He turned to Mama Ola, whose face was twisted with panic. "What have you done to my child?" he roared. She tried to run, but the villagers blocked her path. Some shouted for justice, others cursed her wickedness. The father grabbed the knife from her hand and threw it to the ground. "You will pay for this evil," he spat. That night, prayers and elders were called. With chants and holy water, they broke Mama Ola's wicked spell. Injeoma's form shook, twisted, and finally, her human body returned. She fell into her father's arms, weak but alive. The crowd rejoiced, but her father wept bitterly, holding her tight. "Forgive me, my child, for not seeing your pain." Injeoma whispered through her tears, "Papa, I am home." And the night that began with fear ended with truth, as Mama Ola was cast out in shame, never to return again. The end. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll, like, share, and let others feel Injeoma's pain. What do you think? Did Mama Ola deserve forgiveness? Tell me in the comments. This story shows that no matter how long evil lasts, wickedness never wins. If you believe this too, type justice in the comments and share this story so more people can learn from Injeoma's pain.